Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. My name is Devin Morgan, Director of Youth Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, Driveline Academy podcast, world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. I don't know that I can keep saying that for like every episode, because we're like at episode 20. Well, by the time this comes out, it'll be pretty close to 30.
I got a suggestion. You say it once, and then we just add it to the beginning of every podcast.
Yeah, probably, but then you miss like the potential just like falling off the cliff thing if my brain just like shuts down.
Which is always good. That's what they want to see.
Sure, yeah, it's everybody. Yeah, I mean,
hey, we're almost in August.
That's right.
So like, for youth baseball, you get to August and your brains are dead.
Yeah, you got to give the people what they want. I am joined as per usual by my brother, my partner, guy building this thing with me brick by brick. Man, and he has done a hell of a job this year of running this Flippin' Academy, Jeremy Techtiel. So I think we're going to do this as like our year-end wrap-up. I had a bunch of other stuff that we could talk about today. There was a local team here that got involved at a big fracas at an 18U game. I saw this clip of Dwight Howard of the Orlando Magic at one point, and then later the Los Angeles Lakers and a bunch of other teams as he kind of just like devolved his way through the league.
Yeah.
And he had his kid doing...
And not just the NBA.
Well, yeah. A worldwide...
yes, a worldwide effort of devolving his way around.
Yeah. And he's got his kid on like a Stairmaster or something like that, and is like pushing his kid to the point of crying. And there's like all this, this like, you got to embrace the grind, crap in the background. And I was going to go do a whole...
Something he famously never did, according to most of the teammates that ever played with him. But I digress.
Which is so funny, There's a video that my son sent me of A-Rod posted a 3-second clip of a kid doing a pull down. And then you kind of pan around to see what the radar gun is, but then it cuts off right there. Then A-Rod gives you like a nice little soliloquy about how velocity development is not important until the point that you're 16 or 17.
Sure.
So like, good luck with that.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong, right? Like, they've already quit baseball.
Yeah,
right? Like, if you're not going to develop velocity, anybody that doesn't have it has already quit.
Yeah. So. And for this particular episode, I think we can punt on basically all of that stuff. And I think...
as much as we wanted trash A-Rod.
And we're going to.
Yeah, okay.
Like, stuff like that is just evergreen. I think we'll come back to it. We'll do that maybe as your post-vacation podcast. Oh, gosh, and I was at the Bariner game a couple weeks ago. I took the kids and my brother. I will tell this story. So we go to the Mariner game. My brother's a huge Jays fan. Okay. Alek Manoah's pitching. And we're like, well, this could be great for you, or it could be great for me as like a Leighton Mariner fan who, is mostly given up on the team, but I still hold some amount of like local allegiance. So we get tickets in the right field. We're like 3 rows back from the right field fence. So we're right there, right? And George Springer is also right there. And there's this fan, a woman in the first row. And every time Springer comes out to the field, the worst chirps I've ever heard in my life.
Like good, bad chirps?
Bad.
Okay.
Internal logic problem, bad.
Okay.
So Springer comes out, and every time she goes, you're going to drop it, I'm going to catch it. And like, first of all, it's like, I haven't checked his baseball card in a while, but like based on the fact that I was like 20 feet away from him, George Springer, not 20 feet tall.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So highly unlikely to like drop a ball here and then have it like drop to this fan sitting, right? Sure. Like just in like the internal logic of this chirp doesn't even make sense, right? And there's so much other fodder you could throw at that guy.
Unlimited.
To that end, and like she literally did this for like 9 innings.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I don't dislike George Springer. Unlimited for every ball player. Just Google him. You can find whatever you want to chirp.
Right. Well, and specifically for guys who were on that Astros team.
Correct. Yes.
And like
he may have been implicated in a cheating scandal. That's probably the fodder that you need, right?
Yeah, and with my allegiances to the Los Angeles Dodgers, I feel some type of way, but I honestly don't think I have ever chirped a guy. I never have. I might have booed A-Rod when he came back to Seattle. But I've never like chirped a guy like that, right? So there was another guy in my section, a couple seats away, who Springer had a tough start to the day, right? Grounded into a couple double plays to start. So Springer comes out. It's like I don't know, bottom 6, bottom 7 or something like that. And he's, finishes his warm up. He's got his back to us, right? And the guy starts lighting him up. He's like, "Tough day at the plate there, George." And it's like, okay, I mean, great. This is, to be clear, much better chirp than this whole rhythmic, logical fallacy thing about him potentially dropping it. Like, when's the last time that George Springer dropped a ball?
Was he the one in the outfield last year with a Mariners Blue Jays with a fly ball drop in that big comeback?
Maybe.
But he didn't drop it. I don't think. Even
Yeah.
if that was the case, I think it just like fell into no man's land.
Yeah. So the guy's like, "You're tough to hit the plate there, George, yada, yada." And like Springer, to his credit, doesn't turn around and look to guy, doesn't engage him. And he kind of just, like the shrug hands emoji, like whatever. And the guy's like, "You should think about giving back some of that money." And you can see Springer just shake his head. Yeah. and it was like an aggressive head shake to be very clear that like, no, I'm cashing these checks, baby. Yeah. I'm cashing checks. But yeah, just the whole like fans chirping pro ball players. It's just like,
even in like younger Devin days, you never chirped a ball player.
No. And like, honestly, I don't know that I had like a distinct disdain for any of them other than like, I guess in my teenage years, like Rafael Palmeiro. Rafi Palmeiro always destroyed the Mariners. Okay. So like, boo the guy, like maybe, but like, I wasn't like trying to go like, I'm going to try to find the one thing that's going to get that guy's attention. I don't think I've ever done that.
See, like, I grew up a Cubs fan,
but a Chicago guy. Yeah, fans are a little bit more aggressive.
Bleacher bumps in the Wrigley bleachers. It is. You can't not do it.
Sure.
Like, and it's by and large all in good fun, and like the outfielders know that or whatever. Right. But like, yes, I have chirped an outfielder or several dozen in my day. I think the last one I did was college, where I was at a Twins game 163, in fact. And absolutely was really chirping Miguel Cabrera, who was on the Tigers. That was probably the last time I can remember like actually chirping a pro ball player.
It just occurs to me that I think one of the things that frustrates me about Seattle baseball and Mariner fans specifically is that we're just like very milquetoast about the whole endeavor, right?
Yeah, Well, it's one of those things where it's like.
And we've never.
What do you like? You're gonna chirp, and then they're gonna turn around and be like, "When's the last time you won anything?"
Correct.
Like it's
correct.
It's tough.
Correct. And the funny thing is it like that? There was all this hubbub moving into the Jays Mariners game because they were selling a bunch of Jays merch in the Mariners team store, and some of the because a lot of the Jays fans are like they're just Canadians and they just infiltrate the city.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. So they had Jays merch in the Mariners team store, and like that. Obviously, once it got circulated on social media, some of the Mariners players saw it, and they're like, "What the what?"
Yeah.
And then that stuff actually got pulled out of the team store, amusingly enough. But
they should never play for the Rays, who absolutely sell Red Sox and Yankee clothing in the team store when they play the Red Sox and Yankees.
Sure, but it was just like so. The series has been weird because I think when I took my brother last year, it very much felt like a Jays home game.
Yes.
And Mariner fans don't do much to kind of push back against that. And there was a little bit of that pushback in this most recent series, right? Like at least from, there's like there's the dueling chants or whatever, yada, yada. But the thing I was just thinking when you were talking about growing up a Cubs fan and chirping guys is like, if that's the thing you need so that you get fans who don't start doing the effing wave.
Yeah.
When it's bottom 8 and it's like first and third and one out and you've got like a number 2 hitter on the team at the plate, there is nothing that drives me crazier than when Mariners fans start the wave in an impactful moment.
Right.
And like, do I think that fans impact the game? Maybe in a very, very, very minute amount. But to whatever,
I would say more than minute.
Okay. So to whatever degree that that's a thing, that fans can impact the game, the moment that like people are not cheering and engaged, but they're like looking around the stands. Oh, when is it my turn to raise my hands and participate in this dumbass, silly groupthink exercise? Shout out to my buddy Pete. Pete and I have been yelling at people about doing the wave at Mariner games for like 30 years, and it still just annoys the crap out of me. And then I have to explain to my kids like, "What, Dad? Why don't you do the wave? Why don't you do the wave? Because I am taking a stand. That's why." It's so ridiculous. So yeah. So season recap. I put together the numbers, and I think we've talked a lot about kind of how to establish competitiveness, right? Because we understand that a lot of the directional decisions we make about development, alliteration, that's one point, at like the early ages don't really set us up for like the highest chance of success of winning a number of those games, right? Because we're just kind of abject rejection a lot of the strategy involved there, right? So then the question is, I think, and this is something that I think we, are doing a better job of answering internally for our families. It's like, well, when does winning matter? Well, I think for us, the closer we get to high school is the point that we want to win.
Yeah.
So I think, when I started looking at the performance of our high school age teams and our 18U team, the run that our 15s went on, the run that your team went on, the run that the 13U team went on, like I was looking at around, and if you look at it, we are pretty close to like a 50% win-loss across the entire academy in the month of July, and those high school age teams and some of those like middle school age teams are like in a very good place.
Yep.
And I think
with the clear stratification of like the top team at each age.
Yeah, 100%.
Was very good.
Yeah.
The second team was mostly competitive. With some exceptions, and then the third team, if they had it at that age, was
very much a developmental team that needs a lot of help. So I don't know. I was thinking when we had our year-end party yesterday. I was the last time that we did it in the facility here was year one, and when I did the thing on year one, and stood basically on that same thing and was talking to our families. I had a slide deck presentation, and I put like our winning percentage up there. And it was a very different feeling for me yesterday. Like to think about, 2 years ago, knowing that we needed to get better. That second year being a very significant struggle because we grew so much and didn't have systems to support our growth, taxed our most existing resources in terms of coaches. It was just not, it wasn't great. Like that's just the truth of it. But like being able to stand up there yesterday and feel really confident that like we're in such a better place, man, it felt pretty good.
Yeah.
It really, really did. And it was cool talking to the kids because I think that stuff matters to them, like I think it's important for them to know from us that we're fired up about the direction, like that part of it was just pretty great to me. And knowing that like, if we're already in a position with some of our teams where we're just throwing like, I don't know, 7 to 12 miles an hour harder than anybody that we've seen, we're on a good path. Mm-hmm. We're on a good path. And it's funny, I was talking to one of our parents about who's on our 13U team this year, be 14U next year. Kid's a good ball player. And they were advocating for us to kind of see like higher skill level competition. And the thought being that like, well, I got to start to lean into that stuff now before I get into high school. And what I was telling that parent is like playing through this 14U year, there's such a huge variance of like the skill that we saw.
Yeah.
Like everything from like 52 mile an hour heaters to 76 mile an hour heaters.
One was a little bit more common than the other, but yes.
Yeah. And I was trying to explain to that parent that like, the reality is that even at 14U in our local area, it's not like the 13U year is a very weird year. And 14U is just like, oh, it's all kids that they're on their, JV or varsity high school team. It's not that.
Nope.
It's not that. And that's the tricky thing about baseball in this weird like stratification time is you kind of have to be able to deal with both. You're going to see both of those things in your performance environment. It's just natural. And because it's your competitor that you're going to see, you can't control it either. And it's one of the tricky things about, we want our kids to be trained in an environment that's like directionally relevant, I guess. You know, like you don't want the 14Us to sit in there against like 45-mile-an-hour heaters all the time.
Right.
Probably, I mean, 55 even is not great. Like 55 for them will feel small, feel slow. But it should, right? But you can't change the fact that you're going to be in a tournament and you might see, that might be 25% of what you see, you know, is like kids throwing slow. And it's, again, the reason we spend all this time advocating for skill development is because if you don't and you fundamentally neglect this stuff and you choose the A-Rod path, it's tough.
Yep.
It's really tough. I don't know. What else do you have for like end of season thoughts?
I've got lots of thoughts. What's the Joker meme?
Yeah.
Like negative thoughts. Whatever. No, I thought it was a great year. I mean, like, yeah, we had ups and downs for sure. But overall, I think it was really great. Like my goal going in, because I firmly believe that you can't ever make more than 70% of people happy. Like no matter what you do, there's always gonna be 30% of people that like, I think you're an idiot. Sure. It's like, okay, that's fine. As long as 70% of people are happy, then I'm doing my job pretty well. And you know, we're gonna wind up with 70+% of kids coming back.
Yep.
But we had 87.5% of kids wanting to return.
Yeah.
And you know, 17% or whatever, 15% of those kids are not going to end up returning for one reason or another. But like the fact that one reason isn't because they dislike the program, or don't get what we're trying to do. I think it's like a really telling signal that obviously was pretty different last year.
Yep.
And the one thing I really keep coming back to that I'm struggling to answer, and I don't think there's an answer, and that's why I'm struggling to answer it, is what does competitiveness mean? What does being competitive mean? Right? Like that was a decent amount of the conversations that I had over the past month as we're going through this retention stuff and trying to get people to commit or not to come back. A lot of what I heard was, we want to be more competitive. We want to be more competitive. And I never really asked because like, I don't have an answer. So it's, you know, the old, don't ask questions that you don't have the answer to. Yeah. But what does competitiveness mean? You say you want to be on a competitive team. Is that like, I'll just use our high school teams as an example. 16U won a tournament. 15 and 18 both made it to the championship of at least one tournament. What's competitive? Is it every weekend getting to the championship? Yeah. Is it like that? Because that's probably not realistic. Is it being well over 500? Like, what does competitiveness mean? Because I think it's just kind of thrown around because people don't like to lose. Yeah. So even going 500, you're going to think, oh, well, I want to be more competitive than 500. Great. There's not that many teams that are more competitive than 500.
Right.
And like those teams probably not have spots because they're probably going to retain most of the kids that are on that team if they're winning 60, 70, 80, 90% of their games. So like that's something I have struggled a bunch with is where does that question lead? Yeah. Because I don't really want to pull at that thread of what does competitiveness mean? Should we try, is the goal to just like every single weekend that we're in tournaments, like selling out to win every single one of those games because that's what it means to be competitive? Yeah. Is it like I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah. Is it never getting mercy ruled? Or like, to me, the best answer would be what's your run differential? Yeah. Right? Like the closer it is to 0 or being positive, that's a competitive team. Yeah. They might lose some games. They're going to win some games. Like that's competitive, right? Like to me, competitive is like, you're not getting blown out every time you take the field. Like you have a chance to win every game you're playing. To me, that is like if someone asked me to define competitive, that's what I would say. You have a chance to win every single game you are playing. You don't show up knowing you're going to lose. Yeah. Because that is the opposite of competitive, right? Like that's where you get into the non-competitive realm. And I think a lot of our teams, there were definitely a couple by the end of the season that were still in the, we're just showing up here to get our brains beat in because we don't have catching, whatever it is. Yeah. But like the vast majority of our teams absolutely did not feel that way by the end of the year, where like they were defeated before they had even played the game. Yeah. And to me, that's all we're looking for competitiveness wise. So when I tell parents we want to be more competitive, That's what I mean. Is like, I just don't ever want these kids to show up to a game that they feel like they've already lost before they even start.
Yeah.
Some of those games, they're going to, because you can't stop kids from doing it no matter how hard I've tried, they're going to look these teams up on Game Changer, they're going to see their record, and they're going to draw conclusions that, like, these guys are going to beat us. Mm-hmm. Or the opposite of, oh, we're going to kill this team.
Yeah.
Neither of those are good.
Yeah.
But, like, that to me is, as long as, removing that piece of the Game Changer, like, kind of setting your expectations before you show up, like, talent-wise, we should never show up to a game where we are like, yeah, there's no shot we win this game.
Yeah.
Like, we're just sending these kids out here to get waxed today.
Yeah.
But, like, I am fairly certain we have a lot of parents who have a very different definition of competitive, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what that limit is.
And I think the tricky thing for, like, as a parent, you might advocate that you want more competitive performances.
Sure.
You also don't know what it means to get you to that place. Because if competitive means I have a roster of, let's say, 12 to 13 kids, and the most competitive construction of that roster is I just play the core 9, and I put the other 4 to 5 kids on the side, if you're a parent of one of those 4 to 5 kids, competitive probably doesn't suit you, but you might advocate for that to be a thing that you want, right? It, like, you can totally go like, well, I want us to be more competitive. Okay, well, guess what? Maybe your kid's getting 3 at-bats over the course of a tournament season.
Right.
Or a tournament weekend, rather.
I think the subtext in a lot of these, and this is me putting on a psychologist hat that I don't have any credentials for.
Me neither.
But my assumption is what they're saying, the underlying is, there's kids on this team that I don't think are good enough to play with my kid. So when they're saying, I want to be on a more competitive team, I want to be more competitive, what they're saying is, like, I want you to carve out the bottom 4 or 5 players on this roster and give me players who are better than that.
Sure.
And, like, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Well, and we get into this chicken and the egg thing of, like, where do the talented players come from? Do they just, like, rise out of the ether? Or are they taught through consistent stimulus and stress and application over time?
Yeah, it's the first one, right?
I mean, usually, it's like this field of dreams thing. We just, like, open up the front door at Driveline. And
hey,
we just,
if you build it, they will come. We built it. Where are they?
Yeah,
they have not shown up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not true. They have shown up.
Shoeless Joe, like the 12-year-old Shoeless Joe should just be walking in from the cornfields. And
but wear shoes. If you come in here, please wear shoes.
Yeah, for sure, wear shoes. Don't wear
cleats, though.
Spikes,
Yeah.
But yeah. It's just not that simple.
No.
It's just not that simple, but I think... and I struggle, I think, trying to think about how to communicate to parents that the reality in youth sport, with tremendous amount of biological variability, that we can't systematize around.
Right.
And if we can't do it, well, guess what? There aren't a lot of people probably that have the chops for that. And not do that in a way where you're going to harvest a kid's output. Because that's generally the thing that this comes down to, right? It's like, well... Johnny, needs to make better contact. Well, right now, Johnny's bat speed is like 20 grade. And I'm pretty convinced that the path is like, you have to learn how to move fast, and you have to learn to apply that movement speed. Jeff Leach, Coach Jeff Leach on Twitter, good dude, had this thread up the other day talking about how he's got his kids training in environments where they are designed to force him to move fast because that's what the game necessitates. And there's just like this beautiful comment in there from someone who is obviously a parent, I'm sure has the best of intentions with the way that they're trying to help their parents or their children. Maybe. I mean, you got to
give them the benefit of the doubt.
I'm the glass half full
Sure.
guy,
Sure.
And he's like, well, mechanics come first. And it's like, man, I know just this horse is just like a bloody red pulpy mass at this point of bone, gristle, tendon, and tissue that's indistinguishable from each other because we beat the crap out of it.
It's almost gelatin. Right?
It's
that's
basically,
how you
it's like
gelatin.
horse jello.
Yeah. Okay.
But
wasn't that where jello comes from? Sorry if you like jello on the podcast.
Horse hooves, right?
Yeah, I think so.
The more you know. It doesn't work that way, man. Output defines mechanics. Unless you have the golden ticket where you can be so lucky as to be able to throw 95 or throw whatever like 95 is relative to your age, And most of us don't have that. You need to output to justify, define, shape, mold your mechanics. That's the path.
Yep.
You can look at, we have a couple blogs if you really want to go deep on this. High intent throwing for youth players. There's a simplicity in hitting mechanics blog that we wrote that like covers the basic idea behind this on the hitting and throwing side, but just this presumption that, again, this is the A-Rod thing, right? I'm just going to wait, for nature to descend upon me and help me throw hard at some point, and in the meantime, I'm going to lock down my mechanics to strike out kids who would be striking out against anybody because they suck as hitters. And you don't develop competitive output. It just blows me away. And I really don't know. I don't know. I'm still searching for the perfect mousetrap to like help people understand that.
Yeah, I don't know if that exists, honestly, because like we had a great kid who was in this week, 14U this year, 6'1", 180, like great body.
Yeah.
Super talented. Does not nearly throw or hit as hard as he should for the amount of force he produces and his size. And there's belief that it'll come. It's gonna come.
I'm just gonna wait.
Right.
It's manna from heaven.
Yep. It's like, well, it already isn't coming. Like you already are producing. Or your output is already not where it should be based on the amount of force you produce. Where's the signal that it's just going to come if it hasn't already come or started to come? Like you're 6'1", 180. You're probably not going to get all that much bigger or more filled out than you are right now. You are probably closer to the end of your growth period than you are the beginning of your growth period for sure. And like, it's just going to come. Like I'm just going to automatically wind up throwing 90 in 2 years because I'm big.
Like why?
Like, yeah, it's that's something you have to work on.
I mean,
separately.
That's just Kyle had a tweet many moons ago that I think he's since deleted, but like the gist of it, if I can remember correctly, I was trying to find the screenshot, is consider that the current version of yourself is just representative of the things that you do and the choices that you've made. And if the things that you've done and the choices you made are not putting you in a position to have the output paired with the skill that you need to be competitive, then you probably need to do some different things.
Yep.
But
the problem is, hey, you're throwing, I think he was 78.
Yeah.
You're throwing 78 at 14U.
Great place.
Yeah, you're in a good spot. But you're 6'1", 180. I get kids throwing 78 that are quite a bit smaller than that.
By a wide margin.
So like that's where like, and he's just totally missing that signal. Like that is why he is throwing 78 because he is bigger than all the kids he's playing against. When that is no longer true, are you still going to be throwing harder than those kids?
Yeah,
probably not. And like it's such a personally frustrating thing because like there isn't. No matter how good the kid is like of a human and how nice the parents are, there are some people who are just like always going to make the choice of like, well, like we got to go play on national teams.
Sure.
Like we got to go play on this team because like they won a bunch of tournaments this year, and
scouts might be there.
There's the best kid from my high school plays on their 18U team, so like that's got to mean something, right? Like they had to have done that for that. It's like, well, or nope, it doesn't.
Correct.
And it's there are some people who are just never going to get the signal, no matter how many mousetraps, as you said, you lay for them or set for them. They're going to avoid that mousetrap and fall into the other people's mousetrap. And then he's going to look up at 16 and he's throwing 81.
Right.
And is going to be like, well, I should have spent the last 2 years differently. And you don't get that back. You don't get that back. And like that's the most frustrating part for me is like when you get a kid on the force plates and you can literally see how much force he's producing and tell the parent he should be throwing this and now and he's only throwing this, we have to get him there. And they're just like, sure, but like this senior that goes to his high school plays in this program and like they win a lot.
That whole idea is very much like, well, that gas station down the road sold a winning lottery ticket like 6 years ago.
That's a really good analogy. Really good analogy.
That's where I buy my lottery tickets. Doesn't work that way, man.
Nope.
Never is going to work that way.
Nope.
So, I think speaking of competitiveness, I accidentally just said something that has well over 194,000 views on Twitter, which is very strange. USA Baseball.
This one's for you, Chase.
Shout out to my brother Chase Glom, man. I love you, dude. So USA Baseball, their 12U national team, is doing some international competition, and they played
competition. Is that the right word to use?
Well, amusingly, they played a game against a team from New Zealand.
Famously, very good at baseball in New Zealand, right? Very high-level baseball players.
Sure. And they won that game by a score of 43-1.
Now, caveats here. It's a 4-inning game. There's a Mercer rule. It's a 4-inning game.
43 to be. Let me announce the crap. 43.
Also, the other caveat is New Zealand scored their run in the bottom of the fourth.
Yes.
And they got one hit.
Yeah.
So it is actually worse than it sounds.
Yes.
Like somehow 43-1 is worse than it sounds.
Yes. So then to go one layer deeper.
Do they have Game Changer? Can we look at the Game Changer of that?
Ooh.
I would love to know if they were still like stealing bases.
There's no shot they still have Game Changer. Oh, man, maybe.
Or like a box score or something. I'd love to know if they were still like stealing bases or like hitting balls in a gap and like, I'm going to try to stretch this into a triple or a homer.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to know.
I watched the highlights. Did you watch
did you? No,
Yeah.
God, no.
I went very far down
I have
the
much
rabbit
better
hole.
things to do.
Fair. So, the clip that USA Baseball puts up is a picture of a kid, and it's kind of like finishing the backswing.
I saw someone's comment to your kid. It's Troy Gloss's kid, apparently.
Troy Gloss's kid. And the bat that they are swinging is a 2017.
Is that the price of it or the year?
No, that's cheaper. That's cheaper. It is a 2017 DeMarini CF Zen. Shout out to any of my dads who are very nerdy about bats, because we all know that bat has been banned in like basically all like domestic competition.
Yeah. Domestic, keyword there.
Right. And what I found was a listing for one of those bats that looked basically in brand new condition on eBay for $2,199.99. And the shipping was $35 on top of that.
Not a bad deal for shipping, honestly.
Yeah. So look, and what I did.
If you have to spend that much on a bat to fake what your exit velo is, you should probably just spend that amount on like a blast sensor or 25 blast sensors and like just train bat speed to swing harder so that you get the same result with like a bat that's not illegal.
Correct.
Did I jump the gun there?
No, this is perfect, because the caveat that I did note is that, again, I understand, and I don't blame anybody, USA Baseball included. If you're in a international competition predicated on winning, you don't want to bring a knife to the proverbial gunfight.
It could even be a domestic, like,
sure. Yep. Absolutely.
Regional competition.
Absolutely.
We've done the same thing.
I understand that. The reason that I wanted to kind of like you said, pull at the thread a little bit is unpack why are there youth bats, 5-year-old youth bats, 6 years old. Jeez, I can't even do math this afternoon. 6-year-old youth bats. Why are they going for $2,200? Well, this is an economic issue. That bat wasn't $2,000 when it was sold. $299, $349, whatever. There aren't that many of them left. Okay, so
talk about time machine. Go back and buy a bunch of them. You know how rich you'd be now,
dude. If anybody has a lead on like a bunch of the old Easton Comp Stealths with the orange barrel, holler at your boy. Inherently limited supply.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of, again, anecdotal information about some of these bats from that 2017-2018 window, which, to be clear, as far as I understand, when they left the factory, they were BPF 1.15 within that spec. The issue is with these composite or carbon composite bats, the more that they break in, they have the ability to increase the amount of trampoline effect that you get out of them. you're artificially increasing exit velocity to your exact point. And the question here is that, like, if you watch the highlights, that's all I've watched. I didn't watch the full game. I did watch the highlights. There are a lot of those hits that it's just like we're F7, F8, F9 all day long. But you have artificially increased the performance of your hitters. Yep. So now that ball that is an F7 goes 10 feet over the fence.
Did, in the highlights, did any of the New Zealand players appear? Like, were they swinging?
They had a couple decent bats too. Okay. Yeah. Now the amusing thing is that I also happen to know a guy who's relatively closely connected to the New Zealand program. Shout out to my brother Paul Wansbone. Paul, please don't get mad at me if I said your last name wrong, because I think it's the first time I've ever said it out loud definitively on a podcast. But what Paul said is that they had a pool of like 40 kids to pick that team from. Yeah. And I don't believe that they are all 12-year-olds.
So you're saying there were less kids than the amount of runs they gave up?
Yeah. Now, the other thing that you'll see if you look at the highlights is you will see highlights of the 12Us on the United States team.
Sure.
And there are a couple of those kids who, when they hit, over the fence balls that I suppose I have to begrudgingly call home runs because that's what they did, when they round first base or when they round third base, those kids are as big as the adults who are coaching those bags.
Yep.
And when you look at the biological variance of the New Zealand team, it's not that. And I'm not saying that the USA baseball team isn't unilaterally stacked with biological outliers, but they have a good chunk of them. In the New Zealand team, because again, they're drawing from a much smaller pool, doesn't look that way. So 12U baseball, incredible biological variance.
Yes.
New Zealand, small population. They grabbed the kids that they had available to them. America, fairly large population, and we grabbed the kids that was available to them. And then let's assume you equip both of those teams with a bat that I think artificial is the word that I keep coming back to.
Yeah.
It's artificially increasing performance. What is the point of this competition? Like what?
To post a Twitter graphic that says we won 43-1.
You're right. You're right.
Like what else is the point of this competition, right? Like if you can call it a competition.
Yeah. It's okay. My bad. Paul, it's 200 to 300 kids.
Okay.
Point remains.
Still, yeah.
Point remains, right? And amusingly, I think 4 of those kids on the New Zealand team are from Paul's home group, and he knows the kid that actually drove in the 1 run for New Zealand.
Let's go.
And when Paul and I were kind of going back and forth on Twitter about it, he was just like, for us, it's kind of a win. Didn't get shut out, drove in a run, and they understood that like the deck was stacked against them. The tricky thing here is USA Baseball as an organization is inherently involved with the creation of the USA Bats standard. The USA Bats standard was implemented because the people, the stakeholders, the decision makers, realized that like giving kids bats that artificially inflate their performance is not good for the game. So, brand new bat standard, and if you really want to go down the rabbit hole about like how the USA Bats compare to USSSA, as far as I understand, the USA Bats relative to the BPF 1.15 standard of the USSSA Bats rate out at a 1.02. A brick wall is a 1.0. So they designed a standard for USA Bats that was very restrictive in terms of bat performance. In that landscape, what matters most? Bat speed. So we understood that this was a need. We understood this is something that would be beneficial for the game and affect millions of kids that play in predominantly recreational baseball, Little League, and Pony, and whatever. And then we go into international competition, and it's like, all right, give me the howitzer.
Yeah.
Give me the atom bomb. And my daughter and I went and saw Oppenheimer. Spoiler, they build a bomb and they drop it. My bad, guys. I know it's a new movie, but my bad.
Is there an alternate ending?
Man, I wish. And like the core contention of kind of the back half of the movie is knowing that we're creating this arms race. And I know this is probably a stupid analogy, but like I don't think this whole like hot bat thing in youth baseball is much different, right? You've given parents who already have disposable income because we have our kids participating in like something like select or club baseball, right? And you're telling that parent, hey, if you just get comfortable on eBay, sideline swap, wherever you want to get your gear from, and you kind of search around, oh, there's some of these bats are really expensive and they're old. I wonder why. Well, that's odd. That's odd. Easton Comp Stealths are going for like $700-800. Really weird. First gen Combat B1s are like, that's a $900 bat. Oh, the 2017 CF Zen is like $1,500, $2,000. You can get a used one for like $750. The well-intentioned parent who has disposable income and wants to see their child succeed is incentivized to buy them the tool that they infer is going to help that mission.
Sure.
Because that payoff is immediate.
Right.
Bat speed training, age-appropriate nutrition and strength training, that's not immediate.
No.
But that's what we do. We're trying to help, man. We're trying to help, but in doing so, we are fundamentally neglecting the thing that is actually going to help them be competitive in a non-artificial way in the current term and put them on a path to be more competitive long term.
Yep.
And when I think back about, the podcast, the ABCA podcast that Brian Brownlee did with one of the USA baseball coaches that ran one of their younger teams, and they talk about how like making the 12U team isn't really a great qualifier for making the 14U or the 16U or whatever. Do tell.
Yeah.
Do tell. Oh, you mean that when the BB Corps standard comes out, it's like a big equalizer?
Yeah.
Oh, that's odd. That's really strange. The batted ball coefficient of restitution has to be 0.5 or below. Oh, that's different than BPF 1.15, these crazy hot bats that go for multiple thousands of dollars on the second day market? Bizarre, super spooky. I can't really understand why these two things are different. And in the back of my mind, I can hear the voice, or I can hear like the keys clacking about like, well, if my kid's going to be in that competition, I'm going to give him the best tool possible. Sure, man, I get that. And I suppose, like you said, not everybody's going to agree with this stuff. It's just inherently difficult to kind of make parents at all agree that like the long-term benefit is the thing that matters most. But stuff like this, 4 to 3 to 1 on the back of a $2,200 bat, what are we doing? What is the point? How does this help any of these kids? Because again, F7, F8, F9, you watch the highlights, and there were a couple liners out there, right? There was a couple balls that like cleared the fence by like 20 feet. Probably would have been gone with a USA bat. Fine. A lot of the stuff in the highlight.
12 to 1?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And I will also admit that might be stuff about international play that I'm not totally up to speed on, right? I don't know if these other countries don't have access to USA Bats, right? Like maybe that's not a thing. Maybe they don't want to do the USA Bat standard. Although talking through this with myself, Little League is an international organization, which means that the USA Bat standard is implemented internationally.
Yeah, probably.
So, yeah, no, I think I've just talked myself out of that excuse. It's Troy Gloss's kid. You got to watch your mouth. Hey, man, like, I'm sure that Troy Gloss, maybe I'm not sure. I would hope, is aware that, like, his son's current success using a $2,200 bat does not portend anything for his future unless he develops some bat speed. And I'm not saying anything negative about that kid in particular at all.
Well, and to be fair, that kid might be able to get away with it because he's got some genetics that are probably on his side. Troy Gloss was like 6'5", right? Like that kid's probably
he's a horse.
Yeah, that kid's probably gonna be pretty big, right?
Yep.
So like he or a bunch of those kids on that 12U team may not actually be that disadvantaged by this.
Yeah.
But all the kids who watch them and are seeing that picture with them swinging that bat and then want that bat
Yep.
are.
And again, as demand goes up and supply stays the same, what's going to happen to price? I remember when the USA Bats first came out, and everybody crapped on them. I understand that, but again, like a lot of this just comes back to, man, like,
why don't we make basketball hoops at younger ages just like a foot bigger?
Because,
or like maybe not a foot, maybe a foot's a little much, but like 4 inches. Sure. 4 inches, add 4 inches of like circumference.
Sure.
So that more shots go in.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Yeah. Except I think these bats are like doing that, and it's also giving kids like cheat code shoes, so they get like a little bit like extra like hop.
Sure.
On like it's on a jump shot.
Sure.
Like it's both.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly artificial, and you can buy it. You can buy it. You can. And to be really clear, the last tournament that we had was a USSSA allowed tournament for our 14U AAA, for our team that was in a 14U AAA division.
The second to last.
Yeah, the second to last. I'm sorry. Yeah. They allowed us to swing U-trip bats. We swung U-trips.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the landscape. So
our kids, I will say, kids complain about it the entire time.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
But like,
amusingly, one of our teams actually stopped swinging U-trips and went back to BB Core like halfway through.
Yeah, not even halfway through.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not trying to deny to any degree that we are either complicit in this or resemble some of the same behavior. I guess the broader thing is,
but we aren't. I will say we are not complicit in it. I'll go out and say that. Like, yeah, we went to that tournament and brought guns to a gunfight. We also, when they're in here, didn't allow them to swing on their own hit tracks profiles. True. The week leading up to it, when we're allowing them to swing U-trips in the gym, we're not hitting on our own hit tracks profiles. Every one of our kids knows that it's fake. So that, I think, is the worst part, right? It's not swinging them. It's not 43-1, right? It's the fact that kids think that that's real. Yeah. And like think that they are better than they are right until they have to use a real bat and realize that it was the bat and not them. And then where's your confidence?
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is the argument against steroids, right? But right, like you can juice. Yeah. I mean, you can juice for a while, but then at a certain point, if you have to go off, to what degree was that supplement definitive in the edge that it brought to your performance, and not your training, not your mindset, not your attitude, not your intention.
Right.
Yeah. And like the funny thing is, I'm remembering the first time that I looked up like the Hit Tracks exit velocity leaderboards, and I remember looking at like the 10Us. I don't even remember how hard Danny was hitting at the time, but there were kids in there that were like pumping 80s. And I was like, what? Like, excuse me? How are there 10-year-olds that hit the ball 80? But, this was, many moons ago. When
not that many moons ago, but yeah.
Well, I mean, in my kid's life, it was like a third of his life ago.
That is true.
Yeah. And, in the USA, or the U-trips were still, very much in effect. And, it's just tough, man. It just so perverts like the performance landscape. Funny thing is, somebody sent me a link to a third-party website, and they sell bats, but you can upgrade those bats. Take the end calf off.
Yeah, roll it. Yeah.
Roll it.
Yeah.
And gosh, what was it was like there was like it's some hilarious tagline, like the monster spec, or I don't know, whatever the heck it was, but that's a thing too, and
that's always gonna be a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're humans like to take the easy way out.
Yeah.
If there's an easy way out, like, a lot of humans are just going to take it instead of like, I'm going to train bat speed so I hit the ball harder. It's, you're telling me I can drop X amount of dollars and then like the ball's just going to go off my bat harder? Like, great. I want like short term. Like, I want that. Like, give me that. Yeah. I think that's kind of human nature. Is like, there's always going to be a good amount of humans who just like, yes, I will take the easy way out. I will take the shortcut because hard work sucks sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Agreed. I'm trying to build my bench back up. It sucks. It sucks. My body feels wrecked today because I went really hard yesterday. The tricky thing is that BB core and wood bats are going to come. It is inevitable. It is absolutely inevitable. And for, these kids that come up swinging, the most expensive, highest performing drop 5s and drop 8s and drop 10s and drop 12s, and just kind of like remain fundamentally ignorant to this inevitable change, it's just you're going to run into like a brick wall, man. Mm-hmm. Like, and we've seen them. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen kids who they'll come in here and they'll have like a U-trip in their bag, and we're like, oh no, like, you got to swing a USA or a BB core or wood, and they have to do one of those other 3 things, and they just drag it around. Mm-hmm. They're not strong enough. They don't have enough rotational velocity. They don't have enough like postural strength to be able to like support that thing, and it's just like dump and drag.
Yeah. I mean, we've got kids that have come in for our tryout, and they'll come in with a backpack that's got the 2 bats sticking out of it, and Dylan always looks at it and says, "You're using this bat, not this bat." And like multiple times, we've gotten, "Oh no, well, yeah, I bet you want him to use the other bat, but like that's not what we want. Like that's not the data. Like we're trying to collect data here on how good your kid is relative to our kids. We're not going to do that with a with a U-trip bat. Yeah, like that's just not something we're going to do. And like, if you're one of those people who are watching this, I'll apologize in advance if we haven't already told you, but like we're not going to take those kids. Like if we've got the parent who is like pushing the kid to use the U-trip because it's going to juice the numbers because that's all that matters, we're not going to take that kid because that is like a pretty clear indicator that like they're just going to do that every time.
Yeah. And like, and I don't know, I guess I'm sensitive to the fact that there are parents who might not understand all this crap, this technical crap about.
I think there are way more of those than parents who actually get it.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm here talking about the BPF, the bat performance standard, and the, batted ball coefficient of restitution and like all this other crap, man. Like I'm well aware that I've gone very far down the rabbit
hole. The 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people just want their kids to be successful.
Yeah.
And if you've got disposable income and your kid is like, "Hey, can I get this bat?" Like, I guess if you got that much disposable income to spend $2,200, like, yeah, why not? Right. Yeah. But like, even absent that, like the $700-800 for a bat.
Yeah.
That's probably pretty common for parents that are in select ball that are just like, I have no idea. Like the amount of questions that we got this year of, and even down in Arizona when we're opening up there, like, what kind of bat should I be using? Like, I don't know. Can you tell me what kind of bat I should buy? Whatever. Especially the younger ages, they're going to go through bats pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What kind of bat should I buy? How much money should I be spending on a bat? Things like that. That if you don't have us to answer that question, you're going to find an answer that might lead you to buy one of these juice $700-800 bats that like you have the best intentions and you don't really realize that it's not good for your kid. Like the bat you just purchased is actually going to be a hindrance to your child's development and not the thing you think it will be.
It is giving you inaccurate information.
Yep. I will say $2,200 covers a blast sensor. You can buy a full set of bat speed trainers. You can go skinny bat, short bat, long bat.
Yeah.
All for $2,200. And then you still got some money left over. So like we can talk about how you want to spend the rest of that money. Yeah. But like do that instead. If you've got that kind of money to blow, do that. If you got $700-800, I should probably know how much these things cost, but I'm pretty sure you could do all that for $700.
I had somebody that
with like $800, you could probably get that full range of bats and a blast sensor, and like do that instead.
I had somebody that was like, well, can't you just like be on a Driveline team for that money? And I was like, hey man, you could do 14 months of Academy online. Get you a blast sensor, actually train it, track it, get better in a real way.
Yep.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. It's like, I was, when this stuff always comes back, like I think about when I was a younger man and I was looking at like the Ferrari owner forums. And this is right around like not too long after like the first Fast and Furious movie came out.
Sure.
And there's the very famous scene of Dom and Paul Walker's character are in their, the modded out Supra or whatever. And the guy pulls up and they got a 348 or a 355 Spider. And it's like, how much does that thing cost? More than you can afford, pal. And like, that kind of argument about people who have, very nice things about like, well, I this is my money and I should be able to spend it in any way, shape or form to help my kid. And like, I get that. I think the layer here is that in baseball, it's so artificially inflated. You are not giving your child accurate information about how they're performing. And it's not even not accurate, it's distorted.
Right, but so to analogize, and I know this happens, right? Are there parents who pay thousands of dollars to get their kid into a college that they shouldn't belong in because they want their kid to go there? Is that distorting and giving the kid a different idea of their academic abilities or their achievement? Yep.
Sure.
And like there's, I guess maybe this is the equivalent of like giving the teacher $1,000 to like boost math grades or whatever, like when you're younger, because like
who was the
much
actress
younger.
Who was like gaming the system?
It was the Full House.
Yeah.
Aunt Becky. I don't know. I can't remember her real name.
Right.
But
I mean, I guess that's the tough thing, right? Is it
Lori Loughlin?
Yes. But like we're Americans, right? And we have this attachment to winning.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just pretty convinced that there's two very distinct paths. There is the stuff that you can earn, and there's the stuff that you can buy. And largely, my best friends, the people that I have the best relationships with, the people that I think are the most interesting, are the people that went through the struggles of earning things.
And like, to be clear, you don't have to not have wealth to go through the struggles of earning things.
Sure, 100%.
I'm not saying don't spend your money. I'm saying spend it on bat speed trainers, a long bat, a short bat, a skinny bat, and a blast sensor.
Or our new youth hitting bundle coming soon.
Well, it's not out yet, so they can't spend money on it yet.
Just coming soon.
Preview, teaser. But yeah, I like spend your money.
Yeah,
you earned it. Go spend your money. Just don't be an idiot about how you're spending it. Like don't spend it in a way that doesn't benefit your child. Because if that is your goal, I got money, I want to help my kid out. I know what you should buy, and it's not that $2,200 bat.
And I guess to that end, shout out to our parents that are coming back for season 4 of the Academy, because for a marginal amount more than that bat, they're actually going to have their kids do 10 months to almost 12 months of training and development in a real way. And I guess the irony of that isn't necessarily lost on me, where we're talking about $2,200 bats plus $35 in shipping versus committing to a thing that plays out over the long term.
Yep.
The thing I just keep coming back to is just like the USA baseball coaches are like, making that 12U team, man, it just doesn't. We don't see a lot of those kids at 14U. Boy, I wonder why. Yeah. Super, super surprising. So yeah.
I know we do have a lot of families that listen to this. So.
Yeah. So shout out to those families, man.
We love you guys.
I hope you guys, see it for the same reason that I saw it when I walked into Driveline the first time, and I saw Herbie Good hit a ball 111 miles an hour right in front of me.
And then you heard he doesn't hit.
And then it was like, and I was like, who is that Yeti? He's a pitcher. He's just thinking about being a two-way player or whatever it was at the time. Yeah, man. I think the long-term value prop is just definitely, it's a little bit something that's a little bit harder to unpack. You don't get as much initial, what is the thing my mother always accused me of? I was very
Should I pull out the list?
Well, yeah. Although my mom's so funny. I sent her the last chapter of the book, and she called me. She was like, I cried. I loved it so much. I was like, yeah, I mean, you're supposed to say that, Mom.
Yeah,
but thank you
can't
very
not
much.
say that.
And then she sent it to my sister. I was like, all right, Mom. Point being, delayed gratification, I think, is a tough thing to wrap our brains around as children and adults. But I think it's valuable if it points you towards a thing that has the more value over longer term, but also certainly leaning into the value that you need into the most impactful time.
Yep. And it's not lost on, I think, either of us, and we don't talk about this a ton in the pod because I don't think either of us are great at like complimenting ourselves, probably.
Oh no, I hate compliments.
But there are other things that we do as a program that I'm very certain no other program is going to do. And we've got a lot of parents who may disagree with some of the stuff or want to see different things that we do. and they believe in us as people.
Yeah.
Because we aren't used car salesmen. We aren't the ones that are going to tell you buy this bat. So it makes it look like we're getting you guys further than we actually are.
Hitting training would be so easy if the Saul was just like, you should just spend more money on a hotter bat.
Have you thought about this bat? Instead of, have you thought about swinging harder? Have you thought about this bat? But like, it's not lost on us that is a large part of the reason why we do have as many returners as we do is the way we run the program and how we communicate and interact. And it's very validating for us knowing that we're running this very intentionally with that in our mind, and that it is seen, and like that is a reason that we're going to be able to get away with making more mistakes than probably other select organizations because they don't treat people as well.
I got a message
or communicate as well.
I got a message from one of our parents. I don't think I told you about this. He said, "Hey man, after we saw you tonight, I was thinking about how kind and encouraging you always are with my kid. Know that it's noticed and really appreciated."
Yeah, I could read down the list of messages that I've got from parents.
I mean, not
a lot of them you've been on, and it's just, yeah, I mean, like, it's not lost on us that, like, that is why we're doing this at the end of the day. Like, we can win games, that's great. We can develop good baseball players, that's great. But, like, we care about these kids. And, like, we're not going to artificially inflate numbers because, like, that bill is going to come due at some point.
Sure.
And, like, we don't want to set these kids up for that situation.
Sure. Well, I mean, and imagine like the additional economic, potential impact you'd be forcing down our families, right? Like, well, right. You want, Johnny to be on the number one team? Well, eBay.com.
Yeah.
You better find something 2017, 2018, before the USSSA Bat standard got a little bit more, well implemented, because like some of those bats, man, like, yeah, I'm sure they did test it out at 1.15 when they left the factory floor. Or maybe they didn't. Yeah. And maybe that's why that bat is banned almost everywhere except in this particular.
Or maybe it was at one point and you rolled it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a thing too. And like, and that was, we had one of those experiences in the next to last tournament too, which was amusing, but
yes.
Yeah. I just can't imagine ever doing that. I truly, truly, truly can't imagine going, you know what Johnny Katie needs? I need to go illegally modify this bat.
Yeah, but it feels good when you're given a ring at the end of that, because the team that did that ended up winning the tournament. So it feels good.
Yeah. And
we didn't win that protest, so it was deemed inconclusive.
Yeah, inconclusive.
Because clearly it was a rolled bat, but there was no way for the umpires to test it. So, yeah, inconclusive.
Yeah, well, super weird. You guys couldn't run compression tests on the field?
Yeah.
Have to call Lloyd Smith up at WSU, see if he's got a mobile rig. There's like 4 people in the world who that joke is going to resonate for, so shout out to you guys.
Because honestly, all 4 are probably watching.
Yeah. Shout out to Washington State University. They have a bat testing lab and a cannon. And the funny thing is, here's the only other thing that I'll say before we again move on from the red gelatin that is this dead horse. One of the things that kind of all of these bats are crazy hot have the same characteristics, that they're very brittle. Durability is questionable because you've kind of reached the absolute edges of trampoline effect, right? I just had a conversation on Thursday or Friday with a bat manufacturer, and they were telling me that even their USSSA bats, they build them and try to spec them out so that they can withstand like 6,000 to 7,000 swings. And that's someone who's making bats, year of our Lord 2023, and trying to do it the right way.
Yep.
And boy, how can I say this without really pissing off a lot of people? You know what? I don't.
We are the most dangerous.
We are the most dangerous baseball podcast. I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to care less about the potential ramifications of this. There are certain bat manufacturers that, like, every spring, everybody's like, these bats always break. These bats always break. They're crazy hot, but they're always break. Why do you think that is? Because they are trying to toe the ragged edge of the performance that they can get, which is going to compromise durability, because they want to have that reputation. And I suppose it's not...
And they want people to go buy another bat.
That too. And I suppose it's not my place to question somebody else's business practices. Like they want to be the highest performing bat manufacturer, and they understand kind of what that entails. My kid has never had one of those bats, if you understand who I'm talking about. The ones where the end caps bust every single spring.
And your kid has several bats.
Whole bunch of them.
And has never had one of those, yeah.
Whole bunch of them. From wood to U-Trips to USAs to BB cores. And I still have an embarrassing amount of youth bats now that my son is just like firmly in the BB core land. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. So again, I'm not trying to like look down on from on high and say that I've never had my kid swing a U-Trip bat. The first homer he ever hit was with a Combat B1 Da Bomb, the black, white, and red one for anybody that knows. When he was a teeny tiny little like 10-year-old, 10 and a half, maybe right. I think it was like somewhere between when he hit 10 and 11. So my son's first homer was with a U-Trip bat. However, when we went to the park that day, he had a U-Trip bat, a USA bat, and a wood bat. And it was like one was a drop 10, one was a drop 5, one was a drop 8. And the sum total of the training directive I gave him in all of those sessions where we hit down at our local park, hit the ball far, hit the ball hard. To do that, you cultivate bat speed. And bat speed plays whether you have a U-Trip bat or a BB core bat or a wood bat. Artificial performance only plays with the artificial implement. So choose wisely.
Yep.
Red horse gelatin. That one's for you, Chase. Okay, so we're gonna do one next. We'll do next week before you go on vacation, and we're gonna really get into. I got to figure out how I can get the video so it doesn't cut our audio. But we'll do the Dwight Howard horrible training video. We'll do the fight on the field. We'll just lean into like all the bad.
We're doing the fight on the field.
Sure. I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Why not? Or 1 week will pass in youth baseball and something else horrible will happen, and then we'll find that clip.
We're gonna have to. It's gonna be tough to hide our opinions of the teams that were playing in that game.
Ooh, I'll cut the top of it off so you can't see the teams.
Okay.
So that's all we got. Thank you guys as usual for doing the likes, subscribes, listens, shares. Listens, what did I say this morning, are like 47,000 on all of our platforms, very quickly approaching 50,000, which is just like very much breaks my brain. So I appreciate you guys for listening to this stuff. Youth training manual coming soon. New youth bats coming soon. If you want to engage with the program right now and you're not in the local Washington area, Academy Online is a great way to get started, or just buy a blast sensor. If you just buy a blast sensor and you like put it on your kid's bat and you go, oh, their swing speed is X. Do whatever you did that day 3 times that week, and then put the sensor on again and see what that number did. Did it change? Did it go up? Did it go down? And if you want some guidance on how to make the number go up, drivelinebaseball.com, 425-523-4030. Almost screwed it up. Support at drivelinebaseball.com. I'm not going to give up my personal cell phone number on the show like you did.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
I'm not bold enough. I still get enough spam calls as it is. Thank you guys for listening, as usual, for listening. We will catch you next time.